In case you're wondering, the photo for this video was not photoshopped. Hello, I'm Kent and welcome to Turn a Wood Bowl. Today we're going to turn the smallest bowl in the world, or at least I think it is, and it's a natural edge crotch bowl on top of that. I challenge anyone out there to find a smaller natural edge crotch bowl to beat this one. Anyway, we're going to have a little bit of fun. I started thinking about this. I'm like, I wonder if I could turn something that small. And I had to think about how would I mount it. And you know what? That's part of the fun with wood turning is there's a lot of problem solving. And you need to think through steps, sometimes several steps ahead of what you're producing to figure out how to attach it or figure out what you're going to do next. And this project is a lot of fun. The other cool thing about this project is anybody can do this with a lathe. Even if you have a really small pin lathe, you could turn this bowl on that lathe. You don't need a great big lathe to turn this bowl, and we're gonna have some fun. But first we gotta find a source for our world's smallest bowl, and I've got a tree out front that needs to be trimmed, so I think we're gonna find our bowl out there. I see bowls everywhere. So I was looking in the yard and I found this limb that needs to be trimmed up, and all of a sudden I spotted a bowl. You see the bowl there? Yeah, that's a bowl. Or it's going to be a bowl in just a moment. I'm using my power limber here, and it's a little much for the end of this limb. Usually at the base of the limb it works really well, but it'll work. We'll get it off of there. And we've got a bowl blank. There's our bowl blank. Let's take this inside. Okay, so I need to get rid of this excess material. And what I'm going to do is just a small handsaw to trim off these upper branches. The funny thing is, this is exactly the same shape that you want to create if you're going to do a large crotch turning as well. You want to leave a little bit of each of the branches in the Y configuration. You don't want to cut right down to the joint. You want to leave a little bit of the Y section there. Now the other thing too is this is a live oak tree, which is a slow growing hardwood tree. And this will turn really well because it has lots of layers. There's tons of growth rings in here, believe it or not. So you really want to find a hardwood. A fast growing tree isn't going to have as much grain or material to turn, so you're going to want to find a slower growing hardwood tree to use a small branch like this. So there's our bowl blank. Okay, so now we need to create a sacrificial waste block that we're going to use to hold our bowl. This is a scrap piece or a cutoff from one of my larger bowl blanks. I'm just marking the centers here. And I'm going to mount that to the lathe in a spindle end-to-end orientation. I'm using the 4-spur drive center and my tailstock. Now keep in mind, this is not the way we typically turn bowls in the grain orientation. This is an end-to-end turning that I'm doing right at the moment. And this is a spindle roughing gouge. This is to never be used on a side grain mounted bowl blank. Remember, I'm doing a spindle turning right now. And I know this channel is called Turn a Wood Bowl, but occasionally I need to do a little bit of spindle work. So don't ever use this tool on a side grain mounted bowl blank. I've got a video all about why you don't want to do that. You want to check that out. So I'm just cleaning this up. I'm not trying to make it perfect. I'm just making it relatively round. And now I'm taking my 1/2 inch 55-degree bevel swept back bowl gouge, and I'm cleaning up the end of this blank to make it nice and flat. Then I'm going to use my dividers to mark the size of my tenon. Now this is, again, this is end grain, so I have to do a tenon so we have compression on those fibers. If you do a mortise here, you're gonna blow out the sides of it, so you need to do a tenon. The tenon is going to compress on those fibers and grip it and hold this blank properly. So here I'm using my 3/8 inch spindle detail gouge, and I'm going to do a little push cut to create the angle for my dovetail so that fits perfectly into the jaws of my chuck. And now we'll go ahead and take this out of the lathe, and I'm going to pop that drive center out and attach my 4-jaw chuck. Then we'll take the tenon we just created and attach that to the chuck. And I'm going to pull the tailstock up for just a little bit of stability while we do this next part. I'm going to use my diamond parting tool. Again, this is a tool you never use on a side grain mounted bowl. Now you could technically use it for a little bit of detail work perhaps, but you're not going to use it in the manner that I'm using right here. Now I'm going to part this piece away. Now I'm not going all the way through because I have the tailstock there. The tailstock is pinching the piece in place, and if I went all the way through, it's going to catch and throw the bowl blank all over the place. Instead, I'll cut down pretty far, and then I'll cut the rest, pull the tailstock away, and then cut the rest off by hand. And there we go. I'll put that piece aside, maybe we can use it for something later. Now this, we're going to clean up the face of it, and this is going to become our structure to work with this world's smallest bowl. That's just a simple push cut across the face of it. Now we're going to get our glue gun warmed up. I'm going to go ahead and plug that in and let it get warmed up. And while that's happening, we're going to sharpen our tool. Now this is my smallest bowl gouge. This is a 3/8 inch bowl gouge. That means the shaft is 3/8 of an inch. The flute is 1/4 of an inch. And I want to make sure this tool is nice and sharp. But I also have to do something special here. I'm going to move my V-arm in. And the reason I'm doing that is now I've sharpened the bevel, which is the most important part. But now what I'm doing is I'm removing the heel. That heel underneath it and the length of the bevel underneath the bevel edge is going to get in the way. So if you think about this tool, we're going to make a really small scooping motion with it on the interior of this bowl. That heel is not going to allow this tool to fit in that small space. So what I'm doing is I'm grinding the heel away. I moved the V-arm up again and I'm grinding a little bit. The heel is the very bottom portion there. You can see I'm taking off just that area. I'm not touching the top bevel. That's the cutting bevel. And that's what we're going to need to cut with. If you want to learn all about how to shape and sharpen all of your bowl turning tools, then check out my online tool sharpening course. You're going to find out all the details of how to make all your tools as sharp as possible, and then it takes all of the frustration out of turning when you have really good sharp tools. You can check that out at turnawoodbowl.com/sharp. Now here I'm just hand grinding the very bottom of that so I get a nice curved edge on the bottom of this bowl gouge. There you can see there's the final piece. The cutting bevel's at the top, and then the heel has been ground away. Now, on our sacrificial piece of wood, I'm going to mark some circles here, and these are just going to be guides, so I know that I'm roughly centered with this bowl blank. Yes, that's a bowl blank. This is incredible. See that little stick sticking out of there? My thought was, oh, I'll just pop that off there, and watch this. I think I do it right about here. Yeah, I just decide, oh, I'm just going to pop that off there. Nah, nope. I probably could over a little bit of time, but that thing is, nature is the most amazing engineer. That thing is on there. And it's been, that little stick has probably been on there for 5 years, and it has grown in there in such a way that it does not want to come off. It's incredible. So I'm going to use a bunch of glue here, and I'm going to attach the bowl blank. Now I want to make sure that those 3 sides, the base and the 2 branches, are relatively flat up against our chuck. We're going to call this a chuck. It's not really a chuck, but it's a sacrificial piece of wood.
If you're liking this video so far, do me a huge favor and please smash that like button below the screen. It helps out this video, it helps the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
And then just take your time and go around this piece and apply some glue around the joint. Work the glue down into all the little crevices, and that way we know we have a really good connection. And then give that a little bit of time to cool and harden up, and we're ready to turn. All right, we're just going to make light push cuts from the base of the bowl up to the rim, just like we would with any bowl. As a matter of fact, all the techniques that I'm using here are exactly the same techniques, minus, making a tenon and a couple little details, but all the techniques that I'm using for this bowl are exactly the same as the techniques you would use on any bowl. As a matter of fact, if you want to learn all the techniques for turning a wood bowl, be sure to check out my online turning course. You can go to turnawoodbowl.com/turn to learn all about that. So at this point, I'm just lightly making cuts to remove material and see what the shape of this bowl looks like. Look at the curled shavings coming off of this. That is so cool. Little dinky curled shavings. Again, there's nothing about this that's different than turning a regular bowl. Same exact process. You do really want to do this with the hardwood though, so you have all those different grain layers that will turn smoothly, and the piece of wood will be firm and compact like this oak piece is. All right, there's the shapes looking really good. I need to get down to the end of those wings. I'm going to move the tool rest in to get a little extra support. I'm going to push right up to the edge of it. I'm going to be careful not to go up to the very edge because I don't want to separate that glue joint. And the glue is kind of gumming up on the end of the bowl gouge. I need to wipe that off a bit. Oh my gosh, look at that. It is so cool. I'm not through all the bark there, so I need to make a couple more passes. It's going to do a nice face cut here to establish the base of the bowl. Now normally I would make a tenon here, but I don't have a chuck that small. maybe there's a machinist out there that can make a chuck that can take a 1/4 inch or a 2 millimeter tenon. Look at that. That is so cool. There's a pith, of course, running through this, just like all other wood. And there's at least 5 or 6 growth rings in there. This branch has some age on it. I'm making a bevel riding cut from the base of the bowl out to the rim. Just take your time, make the cut really light. Look at those shavings. That is so cool. All right, I've got a little bit of high spot on the outside towards the bottom there. You can see that. I'm going to make the final cut here for the base. This is essentially going to be the base of the bowl. So I'm going to put a little indentation there so hopefully it'll sit flat on the table. But there's a little high spot there in the curve. You can see that. And wow, that's so cool. I need to take that high spot out. So I'm going to use the same technique I would with the bowl, and that's a shear scrape. So I'm dropping the handle of the bowl and I'm using the lower wing of the bowl gouge. Look at those little angel hair shavings coming off. Same exact technique I would use to shape and form a larger bowl. I'm just taking that little high spot down. Look at all the shavings that have come off this piece so far. That's crazy. All right, and now while I have it mounted, I'm going to go ahead and sand it. I'm going to sand through all the grits. I start with 120, go to 180, 240, and then 320, just like I would sand any regular bowl. I've got a video all about sanding. Now, the way I'm sanding this bowl is much different than I sand most bowls, but you can check out that video if you want to learn how to sand your wood bowls. Oh my goodness, that is insane. Look at that. That is so cool. All right. Well, this is turning out really well. So I'm going to use some rubbing alcohol. This is the alcohol you can get like at a drugstore. And I'm just going to pour a little on there and let it soak in. That's going to help separate the hot glue from the bull blank. Oh, that worked really well. So here's our bowl with the exterior turned. I didn't quite get to the tips of those wings. I can just sand those down. Now we got to turn out the center. So to do that, I'm using my 1/2-inch bowl gouge to clean off the face of our sacrificial piece of wood. And I'm going to take the bowl and kind of get a rough idea of the size that I need. And I'm going to make another circle here as kind of a guide. And that should be about the right size. So I'm going to scoop out the center here to make a space for the bowl. Now I'm actually going against the grain. This is in-grain wood at the moment. This is the opposite of a traditional side grain bowl blank. If you want to learn all about what direction to cut with the bowl gouge, I've got a video all about that. You're going to want to check that out. Now here, I should have stopped and I should have glued it right there. That would have been deep enough. Instead, I made it a little bit deeper. And I had a little bit of an issue with it, which you'll see here in a second. So this going from the center up to the rim with an in-grain piece of wood is the proper grain-supported cutting pass right here. Check out that video all about which way to cut with the bowl gouge. It's super important if you're going to turn bowls. All right, so now you can see the bowl sitting much deeper in here, which is fine. It's going to work out just fine, but it didn't need to be quite that deep. So I'm going to fill this all with hot glue. You want to work rather quickly so it doesn't cool and start hardening. And then press the bowl blank in there. And then make sure it's centered and you have the wings at about the same height. Then we'll let that cool a little bit so that it hardens. Now I'm going to go with, this is where those ground back heel area is going to be so important. Now you can see the scoop that I need to make inside here. If I had left the bowl gouge with that great big heel, it's not going to be able to reach around. That heel would be rubbing on it, on the bowl, as I'm making this cut on the inside. Look at those shavings. Curly shavings are amazing, but little dinky miniature curly shavings are just the best. Okay, so it's working. What I'm doing is I'm lining up the bevel of the bowl gouge with the exterior of the bowl right here. And I'm making sure that I'm pushing in parallel to the outside of the bowl. Unfortunately, once I get down in there, I have to just remember the shape of the bowl because I have nothing to refer to. I can't really check the wall thickness. So there's a little bit of faith here in turning this and not going through the bottom. The shape's looking really good. We're getting close. Going to make it a little bit thinner. Again, I'm taking the bevel edge and I'm lining that up parallel to the exterior of the bowl as I make the push cut in. And I remember the shape of the bowl, and I believe that I'm mimicking it as close as possible here with the interior. Just take your time and make sure that you have that bevel flush with the bottom when you meet the bottom. Just lightly touch the center. And there it is. We've turned the bowl. Now, we have to get it out of there. But first, while it's mounted, I'm going to go ahead and sand that just a bit. Now, I don't want to put my fingers in there and knock off those edges, so I'm going to be really gentle. What I'm doing is I'm using a piece of sandpaper and a stick, and I'm going to use that stick to apply pressure. And it works really well. Okay, now we can get the bowl out of the sacrificial piece of wood. Again, I'm going to use the rubbing alcohol, and then I'm just going to pull it out. It's not moving. More rubbing alcohol. It's not moving. I need to extricate this from the sacrificial piece of wood, so I'm going in from the side. It's really important to remember the shape of your bowl at this point. All right. That seems like it would work. This is my 1/2-inch bowl gouge. I'm just cleaning up the edge here a little bit around that. And I'm going to soak it again with some more rubbing alcohol. And it's still not coming out. Okay, why are you not releasing? Release. This is why I shouldn't have made the hole quite as deep as I did. That's all right. We're going to go in with a surgically precise move with the spindle detail gouge. Using the tip of that, I'm going to make a push cut right down the side of the bowl, and we're going to separate this one way or another. There's only a thin layer of wood that's holding that bowl in place now. I wonder how far that rubbing alcohol is soaked in. And you can see it's actually not soaked in there very far, but it finally released. And we have a bowl. The world's smallest bowl. Release, please. There we go. And there it is. Okay, so I'm going to take some sandpaper and I'm going to sand by hand. Some of the bark came off, which was, I knew was going to happen. Live oak, you know, every tree has their own characteristics, but live oak is a little touchy as far as maintaining the bark on a live edge piece. And it's exactly true for the miniature. And look right there, there's that little branch. That little branch I was saying it was difficult to pop off, that's that little dark area right at the top of the rim. It's actually in the side of this bowl. Trees are amazing. They're absolutely amazing. So I'm sanding that rim, and it's time to sign this bowl. My chisel point, which I like to sign with, has got a little gummed up edge tip on it. So I'm using some sandpaper before I turn it on. I'm using some sandpaper to sharpen that because I'm going to need a very small area to sign the bottom of this bowl. I'm going to put my initials on here. I need to really focus. I'm kind of squinting. I think I see what I'm doing. I'm not quite sure. It's looking like my signature. I think we did it. It worked. Ha! All right, now, I don't know why I used the oil applicator, but this is tried and true Danish oil. I had enough oil on my thumb that I could have put 4 coats on this. I guess I used the applicator out of habit. And I introduced to you the world's smallest natural edge crotch bowl.
Well, there you have it, the world's smallest natural edge crotch bowl. And I gotta tell you, this is a lot of fun to turn. It was a lot of fun to problem solve it. And once you think about the issues and how this can be mounted, it's really not that complicated. So I hope that you get a chance to try your hand at the world's smallest bowl. Maybe you'll make one smaller than mine, then we'll have to have a challenge. Maybe we'll have to have Guinness Book of World Record over and start measuring natural edge crotch bowls and see who has the smallest one. Anyway, I hope you had fun with this, and I hope you try this out. Next time you guys have a windstorm and some branches come down, or you see a neighbor that's been trimming up their trees and there's some branches stacked in the ditch, you might want to go through them and see if there's some bowls in there, because there are bowls everywhere if you just look. All right, guys, if you're going to make one of these, do me a favor, leave a comment below and tell me what you're going to do and what type of wood you're going to use, all that good stuff. Tell me a little bit about it and tell me what your experience is. I hope you have a great time making these. It's a lot of fun. It's a great conversation starter, and it's just a fun piece all in all. All right, guys, if you like this video, do me a huge favor and click that like button below the screen if you haven't already. Also, if you're not subscribing, click that subscribe button right now, because I got lots of other videos coming and you're not going to want to miss any of those. And as I always like to say at the end of my videos, until next time, happy turning.